Who is likely to be Anthony Joshua's next opponent? Now, I remember back to when Anthony Joshua beat Charles Martin. Eddie Hearns was very vocal about having maybe one more fight, then going for the winner of the Tyson Fury versus Wladimir Klitschko fight. And looking back at it now, I think they were just trying to use Klitschko and Fury's name to kind of enhance the profile of Anthony Joshua, make it seem like he's more ready than he actually is. And the reason I say that is because of who their choice of the next opponent was. If you were going to fight Wladimir Klitschko or Tyson Fury after the fight after Charles Martin, you would have thought it would have been a good quality, experienced heavyweight. You know, that would give him rounds, give him some experience, see what it's like to get some punches thrown back at you before you got thrown in with someone like Wladimir Klitschko or Tyson Fury. So after then, I expect it to be maybe someone like Stiverne, who was in the rankings, or Brian Jennings. I'm not sure if he's in the rankings or not, but the point is, someone that's good, someone that's proven, someone that's got a lot of experience at the top level, to give Joshua the experience he would need to face someone like Fury or Klitschko. And that didn't happen. He went on and he fought Dominic Breozeale. And now after he's beat Dominic Breozeale, Eddie Hearns is mentioning a lot of names as well again. He's mentioning Fury and Klitschko's name as a potential fight for the end of the year. But they're both going to be tied up now, it seems like, maybe for could be quite a while. There's obviously the injury that's held it back till October. People are talking about Tyson Fury taking steroids. I don't think that's true. I mean, they're saying this was 18 months ago. The British Board of Control would have been all over it. And it's only came out from one very weak source, the Daily Mirror, which is kind of a comic, really. So we'll see what happens with that, but I seriously doubt that's going to turn into anything at all. And I seriously hope it doesn't turn into anything, because it'll have a massive negative effect on having a future, unified champion with all the belts. So they're mentioning their names because I think they realise that they're going to be tied up for a while. Then they've mentioned Deontay Wilder for a unification fight, but then Eddie Hearns does say if they are going to fight Deontay Wilder, it won't be well into maybe summer next year, so he's definitely off the cards. The other people that they've been mentioning, they mentioned I think Luis Ortiz slightly, but then Luis Ortiz is not in the IBF rankings at all. I'm not sure if you could have a unification fight with a WBA silver belt. I'm not sure if that works or not. So really, we've got to look through the IBF rankings. The current rankings, of course, are going to be updated next month and probably the month after that before the fight. So let's just go through the list. You've got Joseph Parker, he's number one. He's the mandatory. Now, Eddie Hearns has talked about Joseph Parker, and what it sounds like to me is they want to put the Joseph Parker off as long as possible. They want to wait till February, March next year for that fight to happen. At number two, they've got Kubrat Pulev. Now, I don't think they're going to go for Pulev. I think they're wanting to get Anthony Joshua's profile increased dramatically in America. I think that's what they're really aiming for. Now, I don't think Kubrat Pulev would suit that purpose, though he would be a really good, entertaining fight to have. And David Haye, they've not really mentioned David Haye. David Haye's got that Shannon Briggs fight next as well. That'd be an extremely dangerous opponent as well for Anthony Joshua. So I can't see that happening until maybe next year as well. Johan Duhaupas, again, he's from France. I don't think it would help him. I don't think it would help Anthony Joshua raise his profile at all either. So I think they would leave that fight. Now you've got Andy Ruiz. I think that's a real possibility. He fits the kind of profile that they're looking for. Yes, he's Mexican, but he's well known in America. Quite well known anyway. And he's undefeated as well. He's a rising prospect, and this is the kind of guys Anthony Joshua has been fighting so far. So I think there's a good chance I might go for Andy Ruiz. One fault maybe with Andy Ruiz is it might be hard to sell that fight, because if you look through the kind of opponents Andy Ruiz has been fighting, they've not been that highly ranked. They've been quite low ranked. Some decent top 100 fighters, they are in there, but they're not up at the kind of fighters that even Dominic Breozeale was fighting. So I still think there's a good chance of having Andy Ruiz. Now you've got Carlos Takam after that. They're not going to choose someone that's just came off a loss. Same with Glaskov as well. He was injured, and they're not going to take someone that just came off a loss, even though it's a very controversial loss. Eric Molina, no, they're not going to. I doubt they're going to take the Eric Molina fight. Maybe possibly because of Deontay Wilder also fighting Eric Molina, just to show a comparison there. It took Wilder 9 rounds to get rid of Eric Molina. I doubt it would take Anthony Joshua that long. So that's a possibility, but I still doubt it as well. Dominic Breozeale, you've just beat him. Charles Martin, he's just beat him again. I don't think anyone wants to see Charles Martin ever fight again. Derek Chisora now just came off a loss from Kubrat Pulev, so that's well off the table. David Price, no one in the United Kingdom is going to want to pay to watch that fight yet. David Price needs to start fighting a couple of really good guys for people to start believing in him again, so I doubt that as well. Hughie Fury, yeah, I think they might. I think there's a good chance they could go for Hughie Fury, but I don't think his father, Hughie Fury's father, Peter Fury, would go for the Anthony Joshua fight at this time. I think Peter Fury has been very sensible with Hughie. Hughie's only 21 years old. They're trying to build him up nicely. I mean, they realise Tyson Fury is the #1 fighter in the world right now, so they might as well build him up nicely, slowly. And they just turned down the Dillian Whyte fight. I think that's because of medical reasons, if anything else. But I don't think they would go for the Anthony Joshua fight, so I'm very confident and Hughie Fury is off the table. Jarrell Miller fits the bill again perfectly, and I think he's the most likely opponent they could take. Jarrell Miller's opponents have been kind of the same as Andy Ruiz, but he's undefeated. He talks a lot. He's a good trash talker, apparently. Just like I say, he's undefeated. He's a rising prospect right now as well. I don't think people look at him the same way as they do Dillian Whyte, but they might do in the United States. So, for him being from the United States, being undefeated, Anthony Joshua wanting to build his profile up in the United States, I think that's the most likely fight for him to go next. And just like I say, he fits the bill of all the past opponents Anthony Joshua's been beaten. Gary Cornish, Charles Martin, Dominic Breozeale, undefeated, rising prospect, and with the last two American as well. So I think that's the most likely opponent. If I was going to put my money on one, it would be Jarrell Miller. Bermane Stiverne, #15. Now, I would hope it would be Stiverne. That's what I'd be crossing my fingers, hoping really for that fight. And the only reason I think they might not be able to sell it so well is Stiverne's been so inactive since he lost to Deontay Wilder. It must be 16 months ago now. He's fought a guy called Derek Rossi since, and Derek Rossi was not a very high ranked guy. I think he might just be in the top 50, might not be. Doesn't have a great record. I think he actually has a bummy record, if I remember. He's got quite a lot of losses on his record. And he knocked Bermane Stiverne down in the very first round. And it was a close fight, It was, there was some potential they could have actually lost that fight. So I don't think they'll go for Stiverne. He's been defeated a few times as well. I think if I was going to put my money on who Anthony Joshua is going to fight next, I would say it would be Jarrell Miller. I'm fairly confident that's who the next opponent is going to be. From all the information I have right now, I think that's very likely.